No. She can see the screen. But she can see like there's a camera in there.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I think it works.
Yeah, it looks great. We'll give it a couple more minutes and then we'll go ahead.
Okay, do you want me to turn my camera off and then come on, or?
I mean, whatever you're comfortable with. Yeah, I think they'd be happy to see you while you're talking. So.
Yeah, but right now,
Oh,
if
yeah.
you
No,
wanna
I
turn it
meant
off
like
right now.
before everybody comes in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Stage break.
Who? Me? Me?
No, the professional.
Oh, Josie does not have stage fright, do you, Josie?
Not usually, no.
I think she's out. Hmm? 2 minutes? Okay.
Yeah.
I think just one more minute, Josie.
Sounds good.
Good now? There's a few people, so give me a second. All right, are we ready? I'm Megan Anderson. I'm an outpatient occupational therapist, and I had the pleasure of working with Josie not long after her injury on the outpatient side. She's a huge advocate for people with spinal cord injuries, and she lives out in LA now. So I will let you take it from there, Josie.
Sorry, I was muted. Hi. I'm Joci. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much to Metro for having me. Um, I'm really excited to, sorry, I have a cat. So if you hear that, I'm sorry. I am really excited to be back and kind of look at my journey where I started and where I am now. Like Megan said, I did my outpatient therapy at Metro. So we'll get into all of that, but I just wanted to intro myself first. If you don't know me, I'm Joci Scott. I am an actor, singer, and dancer based in Los Angeles. And I'm a member of the Rolettes wheelchair dance team based in LA as well. I grew up in Akron, Ohio. So Ohio, Cleveland, Akron area is very near and dear to my heart. I'm a graduate of Revere High School and Ohio State University. I studied psychology there. And again, I have two cats that love attention as much as I do, so I apologize if they make an appearance today. And I will go ahead and start sharing my slides so you guys can see. Oh, let me go ahead. Okay. Perfect. Yay. Okay. So I'm going to talk about my story mostly as a disabled actress in Hollywood, disabled with a spinal cord injury. But I got to start at the beginning. So, growing up, I was always a lover of performing. I started taking dance lessons when I was 3, and continued that throughout my younger years. Clearly, I was a shy child, as you can tell by the pictures, but I would put on shows for my family, when they would come over for holidays or, just to come over, as you can see in the top center. Um, and I would always mimic my favorite movies, like beat by beat. I would have it down. So I think my parents were definitely like, we need to keep this girl in the arts. Um, in the bottom center, you can see I have a little clapboard. When I got my first video camera at the age of 10, I found this love for making little movies. Um, I would start by making my siblings do it with me, and then I transitioned into having my friends do it. I would write, direct, act, and edit these movies, but it was so much fun. And it really like fueled my love for performing. So when I was 12, I joined the ETC show choir, which is a local community show choir based in Akron. And that was really where I started to come out of my shell. I used to be really afraid of singing in front of people, just very self-conscious. And being in the show choir helped me to get over that. And it helped me develop my kind of style of performing as well. I think people who watch me perform always compliment me on my facial expressions, and I think that is really where those developed in ETC. So I give them a lot of credit for the performer I am today. And on the right in the purple dress, that is me performing in high school with ETC. I also started performing in my high school theater productions. Um, and I did Beauty and the Beast, Wizard of Oz, kind of all the high school productions you could think of. But I truly just had the time of my life doing theater. And I think deep down I knew it was what I wanted to do with my life, but I was a little hesitant about trying to make it in such a difficult industry. So when I graduated from Revere High School in 2017, I went on to Ohio State University that fall to study psychology, but I still wanted to minor in theater and keep up with it because I couldn't stay away. So at Ohio State, they have a student-run theater organization called Off the Lake. I auditioned for their spring show my freshman year and got in. And it was there that I found my home in college. I found my people. So I participated in their musical productions, as well as they had bi-monthly little performances where you could sign up to sing. And I kept stepping out of my comfort zone in that area, just singing songs with my friends and performing and having so much fun. That was really where I found my home. Um, I also participated in the Department of Theater. I took classes there, as well as in the center. I performed in Legally Blonde. So I don't know how I had time to do all of that and study, but I somehow did. And I had so much fun. Uh, After my sophomore year, I was elected to be the president of the theater club. So I was going full force into junior year. So now we're at the summer of 2019. I performed in Weathervane Playhouse, Akron's local community theater, performed in their production of Mamma Mia. And on the right, I had taken a family trip to Montana. I participated in just about all the things you can think of outside: hiking, kayaking, whitewater rafting, swimming, cliff jumping. I was such an active kid and an active young adult. Um, and I think at that age, you think you're invincible. So when the unthinkable happens to you, and it did to me, I was really caught off guard because life was so good. Um, so on July 19th, 2019, my family and I were traveling in a small passenger plane to Rhode Island from our home in Akron. There were four of us in the plane. The the fuel gauge inexplicably went low, so my father, the pilot, went to make an emergency landing. Um, we unfortunately didn't make it to the runway. We landed in some brush, as you can see in the picture, about 2 miles short of the runway in Poughkeepsie, New York. Um, when I went to stand up to get out of the plane, I knew something was wrong immediately because I couldn't move my legs. And that, I think I was in shock the whole time. I remember feeling very numb and just trying to protect myself in that moment. The paramedics found us. We were all taken to different hospitals, my family. And so when I went to the hospital, they told me I would have to have a surgery on my back, um, a spinal fusion surgery, because I had fractured my L3 vertebrae. And I went into that surgery. I don't remember how long it was supposed to be, but it definitely took longer. I think it was a 7-hour surgery total, due to my internal bleeding. Um, and when I came out of surgery and came out of the anesthesia, I was told that I had sustained a T12 spinal cord injury and that it was unclear whether I would walk again. And the only time I had ever heard of spinal cord injury was in like movies and TV. And it was always portrayed as this devastating thing that ruined your life. And it was shattering to me to hear that I may never walk again, mostly because I didn't know if I would ever be able to perform again and do what I loved. And to me, it was like the biggest loss I could ever imagine. Um, I remember watching TV in the hospital, and I think Friends was on, and I thought to myself, I don't recall ever seeing somebody in a wheelchair that wasn't like on a hospital show. And I was like, why is that? Because I couldn't be the only person that this had happened to, obviously. So I was like, why don't we see that on TV? And Ali Stroker had just won her Tony Award for Oklahoma that a few months ago, actually. But I thought she was one in a million. I didn't think that, I don't know, she kind of seemed like above everything. And I was like, what are we supposed to do? What am I supposed to do now? But as you all are familiar with, the next step was my inpatient rehab. I did my inpatient rehab at Kessler in New Jersey. I was there for 6 weeks. I mean, you all know the process. I don't have to explain to you. I worked on my activities of daily living. I do want to say, I don't know if this is still true, but at the time of my release from Kessler, I was the only female patient to be discharged and successfully be able to catheterize myself. So that was a win for me. I'm gonna pretend that I still hold that title, but I was always an overachiever in my therapy, as the Metro girls can tell you. But I remember being there at Kessler, and all of my friends were going back to school. My siblings were in Ohio. My mom stayed with me. My dad was also at Kessler for his brain injury, but he left a few weeks before me. So it was just a very isolating time. I did get to go on a couple little field trips. As you can see on the right, we got to go to New York City to see a Broadway show. And that to me was like coming home. Being in the theater, watching a show, like it truly was such a light in a dark time. But I remember noticing how inaccessible the city is. And still, I have difficulty when I go to New York, but the sidewalks are uneven and it's so crowded, it's hard to push. And I remember thinking, like, how is this gonna work? Like, some of the theaters are not even accessible, they're upstairs. I was like, how are people like me supposed to enjoy Broadway and be on Broadway? Um, it was just a lot of realizations for me. So I came home to Ohio. I did my outpatient at Metro. My family still affectionately calls these ladies the Metro girls. Um, you know, I was there twice a week for 3 months. And I remember when I told them that my goal was to go back to school in January, they kind of looked at me like, huh? But I appreciate the willingness to try and help me, and they are a huge part of why I made it back to school in January. We worked hard. They were so supportive. I was there twice a week for 3 months, 3.5 months. And as you can see, I spent my 21st birthday with them. All my friends were back at school, and I think this group truly is a testament to like the ideal therapy experience, because for me as a patient and as a young adult, the people I was surrounding myself with, it makes a difference in that developmental time. And the support I felt from these ladies, they saw me as a person, not just a patient. And I was like excited to go to therapy. And I think that's a really special thing. So I commend you guys on that. So part of their support led me to my first performance back in my wheelchair, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, at Weathervane Playhouse, where I had just finished Mamma Mia. The director called me. He was in Mamma Mia with me. He called me like 2 weeks after I got home from the hospital, and he was like, "Hey, Joci, I want you to come be in the show. We need to round out the ensemble. We really want you to come back." And I was like, I didn't know what that was gonna look like, or like if I was even gonna look good. I didn't know if I could sit up for that long. There were so many things that I was unsure about and nervous about. And my parents told me that I needed something to do other than therapy, something that I loved to do, something that would take my mind off of everything. So I agreed to do it just to have fun, and just to, connect with my pre-injury self again. And I worked with the choreographer outside of rehearsal. Their willingness to collaborate with me was so special, because they didn't want me to just sit on the side of the stage. They wanted to fully integrate me into the show and make it seamless. And so we worked outside of rehearsal to discover tricks with my wheelchair. I looked up videos of dancers. I remember Megan showing me some, and I found the rolettes initially that way. I saw them dancing and I took some of their tricks and adaptations and implemented them into the choreography, and I did it. I did a 3 weekend run of the show. Um, I honestly, like, I didn't even notice the pain at that point because I was having so much fun. And the realization I came to, even though during rehearsals I noticed everybody doing the choreography that I used to be able to do just a few months before, that was hard. But I remembered that it's not about what I'm doing with my lower body, it's about my face. It's about this and what this is giving. And that kind of reframed how I perform. Because it's not just about how I use my body, it's the whole package. I'm sure if I went back and did it now, I would do a million things different. But I'm really proud of myself for taking the leap and doing it. And as you can see, the Metro girls came to support me and they brought signs. And I remember working with them to like build my strength up and my core strength and to be able to do the moves. And I think it was a really special moment for all of us. It was a big accomplishment that it was really cool to have them be a part of. But December came and I was ready to go back to school, which I was so excited about. Before I went back to school, though, I had the chance to meet Ali Stroker, who, if you don't know who she is, she won the Tony Award for Best Supporting Actress in 2019 for Oklahoma. And she is the first wheelchair user on Broadway and to win a Tony Award. So she is truly a trailblazer in our community. And the opportunity to see her perform was incredible because I just observed the whole time how she used her body when she danced, how she used her body when she sang, how she integrated her chair is as part of her character, even though Oklahoma, her character was not written as someone with a disability. I got to see how they made adaptations to the theater to make it accessible. It truly was just an incredible experience. And she was so kind to me after the show. She was very encouraging. She told me to go to the Rolettes experience, which I'll talk about later, but she encouraged me to go to LA and connect with women in my community. And she's like a mentor to me now. And it was just so incredible to see her, doing the things that I want to do eventually. So I went back to school. I resumed my duties as the theater club president. I quickly learned how difficult it is to navigate snow um, as a wheelchair user. But I didn't have to do it for long because COVID-19 hit shortly after I returned to school, and I was sent right back home to Akron. So when COVID had hit, everything was shut down. I only left the house to go to Cleveland Clinic for exoskeleton therapy. I had started with locomotor training at Ohio State when I was there. So I wanted to keep up the walking and just staying active and consistent. But it was a really hard time that initial quarantine period because I mean, it was hard for everybody, but I I felt like I was right back where I started, but worse, because when I was at Kessler, my friends and my boyfriend were coming to visit me. When I was at Metro, people would come home to visit me, but with the quarantine, nobody was visiting me. It was my family, whom I love, but can be difficult sometimes to live with, as I'm sure you all know. Um, but it was a really depressing time. I didn't know when things would go back to normal. I just wanted to, feel connected to myself again. And I always feel most connected when I'm performing. So that was a really hard time. But luckily, a great thing to come out of the COVID-19 pandemic is virtual programming, which the Rollettes started during the quarantine, which is how I found them. So the Rollettes are a all women's wheelchair dance team based in LA, but during COVID, they started online dance classes, which I was taking on Instagram Live, and then they transitioned to Zoom. So I started taking those just to see how they would adapt the choreography, learn different routines. It was a lot of fun. I just started by myself in my room. They also started the Boundless Babe Society, which is a mentorship program for women with disabilities. And I joined that in June of 2020. That program is really cool because you learn about goal setting and goal achieving. And we would have monthly meetings where we would talk about a different topic. So you kind of learn how to transition into it's meant for any age, but into adult life and learning what you want to be and where you want to go with your life and your career. And I think that was really valuable for me. It's also a great opportunity to connect with other women with disabilities. I made a lot of friends through that program across the country. But I started transitioning into private lessons with Chelsea Hill, who's the founder of the Rollettes, that fall, just because I really wanted to focus on training. I also thought, maybe the Rollettes is something I could do. If I moved out to LA, maybe I could audition for them. So I started taking private lessons to kind of get myself in front of her, but also to train and learn. And right away, she was like, "When are you moving to LA?" And I was like, maybe after college. So it was really cool to kind of start that relationship with Chelsea and learn from her while I was still in college and still participating in the theater club, but the events were a little less frequent because we were still kind of coming off of all the regulations and everything. In 2021, I was asked to be a little sis on the Rollettes, which little sisters are part-time team members. And at the time that I joined, they didn't have to live in Los Angeles in the Southern California area. So I had, in my class of little sisters, we had girls from all over the country, but we would fly in to hang out with the team a couple times a year. So I flew out my very first solo flight after my injury was to LA in March of 2021 to hang out with Chelsea, and Connor's on the right. She's our team captain. We performed on the Fox LA Morning News, which was really cool. I also got to learn how Chelsea makes her videos and kind of different strategies for being a content creator. And we talked about my goals as an actress, as a performer. And it was really cool to kind of develop that relationship with her. Experiencing the sisterhood and community of the Rollettes was so special. I felt so at home being with people who just understood what my experience was every day. And, learning tips and tricks from people who live it every day, I think is invaluable. It may not be the healthiest way to do it. It may not be the way that you guys taught us to do things, but it's so funny to, I would like do something a certain way and Chelsea would be like, "It's way faster to do it this way." And then she'd show me and I'd be like, "Oh." And it's just interesting to kind of learn from people who experience things every day. So in 2021, I graduated from Ohio State with my bachelor's in psychology and my minor in theater. Initially, my plan was to pursue my graduate degree in LA so I could be part of the Rollettes. But I just kind of let that wither away. um, because once I got to LA and being in the environment that I'm in now, everybody's an artist, everybody's so motivated. I kind of just felt at home in that. And I was like, my graduate degree can wait. So my heart was calling me to performing and acting. My then boyfriend, who is now my husband, agreed to move with me to Los Angeles, and I'm so thankful for his support. Speaking of, we got married in 2022. We got married in Cleveland. I achieved my goal of walking down the aisle with KFO leg braces, which is why I did a lot of the walking therapies. Uh, I'm gonna be honest, it was really hard. I think I was so tight like on the day because I was like running around doing all these things that I forgot to stretch. And so that walk was pretty difficult. But I like to look at it as a testament to our relationship and the trials that we've faced and um, how we've persevered through it. And I think it connects my pre and post injury life in regards to Alex. So, um, being a wheelchair bride is not for the weak, but it was really cool. And I shared my experience on social media for people who are doing the same thing. But back to work. I was promoted to a full-time team member on the Rolettes in 2022. So I'm in there full force. I started traveling with the team. Most memorably, we performed at a Boston Celtics halftime show, which was so cool. That was by far the biggest audience I've ever been a part of, in front of. I did get nervous that time, Megan, but I, you know, I've had so many incredible experiences with these girls. We were just in Austin a couple weeks ago performing at the American Artists Project's Use Your Voice, Use Your Vote event, which was an event to promote voter registration in Austin. A lot of our performances are at events for the disability community, but there are some, like the Celtics and the American Artists Project, that are not. And I think that's really cool because, we get to show ourselves to the world and, promote disability representation and disability inclusion in our society, which is really awesome. But we do love connecting with our community as part of the Rolettes, which is why we hold our Rolettes experience in July every year. We have a 5-day event for women and girls with disabilities of all ages. We have dance classes, different seminars, different panels. We have a pool party. We're really upping our after party game. We have a DJ. We had a Mario Kart game night I think it was the second night this year. But Rolette's experience really is about community. The first time I rolled into a room with this many wheelchair users, I was kind of taken aback, because I'm used to being the only one in the room. So for us to have so many in the room is incredible. And I think girls who come for the very first time, they, get to experience community and sisterhood like they never have before. And I have to remind myself that most people don't have what I have. They don't have, the girls that I can just call up and be like, hey, can I come over and do this, yada, yada, yada. They don't have that. And so Rolette's experience is so special because for 5 days, they get this and you can find your people. And, some people come and they're like, I'm not a dancer, but you don't have to be a dancer. We do have dance classes, but we also have so many things that we offer that are not dance centered. And we always say that, whatever you're looking for, Rolette's experience has it. And I think it's really cool to meet people at this event. it's very humbling to know that these women and girls look at me as a role model, um, especially the kids. The kids are so special to me, and it reminds me why I do what I do. When things get hard, career wise, when things feel dry, I always remember that, these little girls need to see people like me in front of them on their screens, on social media. They need to see it so they know that what they want to do with their lives is achievable. And I think that's really powerful. And it's a lot of my why, and why I'm still doing it, inspiring the next generation and this one. Um, and just the kids are so fun to be around. They're so fearless and so full of energy. Um, and the one on the right, her name's Cece. I have a special relationship with her. And she will say, I want to be a Rolette when I grow up. I want to be an actress like Miss Joci when I grow up. And those things, they just like tug at my heart and um, remind us why it's so important to promote disability representation and inclusion, because it makes a difference in so many lives. Which, getting into although 1 in 4 people identify as disabled, only 3% of characters in film and TV are disabled, which the first time I heard that, I was like, that is insane. Because for me and for even you as medical professionals, like, seeing disability as part of our normal everyday lives. But I think back to before I was injured and remember I didn't really give disability a second thought. I didn't really think about it. And I think that's true for a lot of people, which is why disability representation is so important. Although I didn't think about disability representation, I thought about, why wasn't I seeing people that looked like me because of my ethnicity? Why wasn't I seeing, why wasn't there a Disney princess who looked like me? Obviously I connected with Jasmine from Aladdin, but I was like, why aren't there more? Um, I remember like wishing I had blonde hair because all the princesses had blonde hair. And I think the same is for disability representation. Um, it's different now because we're starting to see more of it, but the girls that I knew when they were younger, they didn't see anything that looked like them. Which is, it's so important. 'Cause it really does inspire hope in people and motivation. So these tropes quickly became obvious to me once I became injured and started looking into disability representation. Hospital setting, Grey's Anatomy, as a patient. Um, Disabled people are often portrayed as helpless, needing assistance, which some people do, and that is okay, but not everyone does. And I think it's important to portray that because that trope in particular is what causes people to come up to me while I'm putting my wheelchair in the car and like take it away from me and grab it from me, even though I've told them I don't need any help. So there's the bitter or depressed trope. I think a lot of disabled characters can be portrayed as villains because they're so bitter about their disability. And there are people with that experience, and it's important to honor that. But also, there are people who are so happy with their lives, and I think that's cool to portray as well. We are often portrayed as inspirational, both in entertainment, film and TV, and social media. The Rolettes just had a video that went viral, of all of us. I think it had like across platforms, I think it had almost 100 million views, of all of us talking about, how we ended up in our wheelchairs. And a lot of the comments are like, "Oh, you're so inspiring. You're so inspiring." And like I think that that comment is like a double-edged sword to me. Because I do want to inspire people, but sometimes it can come across as patronizing and, as if you've ever heard the term inspiration porn, it's when, people who are disabled are used to make non-disabled people feel better about themselves. Um, so that is the inspiration porn, and I think that happens a lot with disability representation as well. There's also the miraculously cured trope in some older media. I remember when I was first injured, watching one of my favorite shows, like rewatching it, and I had completely forgotten about their like spinal cord injury arc. One of the main characters ended up getting paralyzed, and the second he rolled out in his wheelchair, it's a hospital wheelchair. I'm like, why is he in that wheelchair? And then, of course, he's like walking 5 minutes later, he's completely healed. And it's just not realistic. And I think it's harmful for a multitude of reasons. I think it's harmful for, you know, people like me to see that and, know that's not our experience. But also, I think it's harmful for people who don't have experience with spinal cord injury and think that happens a lot. Like they think that's the norm. So they, make comments to us about, oh, like you'll walk again someday. And it's like, but if I don't, like that's cool too. So I'd been on the rollouts for about a year and I realized that I wanted to make things that broke out of those tropes. So this is a still from a short film that I made about my return to performing. It's based on my story. And this is a flashback scene of me like dancing before my injury. And, a lot of the questions that the studios and the execs give to us is they're like, well, how would this work? Like, how would we have how would we film with a flashback scene? And it's like we did this on basically no budget. So on the picture on the right, I'm wearing my KFO braces under those sweatpants. And on the left when we were shooting, I had two people stabilizing my hips so that I could stand. And that was really hard. But we did it on like no budget. So I'm like, if we can do that on like no budget, imagine what we could do with millions. CGI is basically in everything now. How easy would it be to CGI my face onto a double's body? So a lot of the questions that, the networks and the studios ask were like, it's so simple. But I think a lot of it is excuses that they make up to kind of get out of it. But I made this film, and I was bit by the bug. I immediately wanted to do more. So I heard about this thing called the Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge. It's a 5-day film challenge where the main requirement is that you have to work with someone with a disability in front of or behind the camera in a major role. So actor, director, producer, writer, editor. One of those 5 roles has to have somebody who's disabled. Obviously, the goal is to assemble a team of disabled and non-disabled filmmakers, which Nick Novicki created this challenge in 2013. So it's been going for about 10 years, and it has grown a lot. I think he's had over 700 submissions across the decade of short films. So the film has to be 5 minutes long. You get 5 days to make it. It's fun. It's stressful. The first year I participated was last year, 2023, and the theme was romance. The genre was romance. So I was connected with director Corey Reeder. He's on the far right in the picture. he's a longtime participant of the film challenge, and he was looking for a woman with a disability to be in his cringe comedy about dating apps. And I was excited about the possibility of working on that film because although I myself have never been on a dating app, several of the rolettes are on dating apps, and several of the women who come to rolettes experience are on dating apps. And it's something that isn't portrayed very often, which is dating. Dating in itself is hard. Dating on the apps is hard. Dating with a disability on the apps is like another level. So I was excited about creating that film with them. We shot the entire thing in one day. We had 3 locations. I had like 5 outfit changes. It was awesome. It was really cool to like see them work, the professionals work, because I had done some commercials and I did that other short film, but it was so cool to see his method, and he kind of had the whole thing down to a science, which was awesome. The film was called Smash or Pass. It was nominated for 4 out of the 6 awards during the Film Challenge awards process, including me for Best Actor, which I didn't really expect at all. Because I was very surprised by that. Just because I was just in it to do my thing. I wasn't expecting anything. So that was a really cool and exciting moment for me. We had the awards show at Sony Studios lot. We ended up winning Best Editing, which was super exciting. If you're interested in watching it, you can find it on YouTube. But that whole experience was so cool. I started getting a lot of attention from the film challenge itself gets a lot of attention from studios and executives and casting directors. And so I was kind of thrown into that. So it was really cool to feel like I was getting my start. I actually got a $5,000 grant from the president of the Golden Globes because of my work on that film. So it was cool to see not only all the talent that people with all disabilities were bringing to the challenge and the creativity that we all have in this community, it was also cool to see the people that are on our side, the people who are already in positions of power, people who are not disabled who are pushing for us to have our moment, like the president of the Golden Globes and Peter Farley, who is an Oscar-winning director. And yeah, those are just the 2 I could think of, but there were so many people there and it was cool to be in that room where everybody just wants to uplift and honor disabled stories and disabled voices. And it was so motivating to be part of. So Smash or Pass actually ended up being accepted into the Slam Dance Film Festival, which is held concurrently to Sundance. So I went and did the whole Sundance thing. On the right, that's me with Nick Novicki, who is a little person. He's the director and founder of the Film Challenge. And then Corey on the right, who's the director of Smash or Pass. So we got to do the whole Sundance thing. I'm very thankful that Sundance and Slam Dance are not going to be held in Park City anymore because it's so hilly. Yeah, it was interesting. I was not the only wheelchair user there, which I was kind of surprised by. Slam Dance holds a program called Unstoppable, which is specifically made for filmmakers with disabilities. So it's cool to see such a big film festival making space for us. So I got to connect with people through that as well. I actually just went to a friend's movie premiere who their film premiered at Slam Dance. So it was cool to be there and make so many great connections. And, you know, I think Sundance is like the epitome of like indie filmmaking. And it was really cool to be in that environment and meet so many people who are excited about creating and honoring, stories that don't get to be told very often. So this past year, I decided to do the film challenge again. The theme was buddy comedy, and I well, I did just about every job on this film. I wanted to have more of a hand in the filmmaking process from start to finish because with Smash or Pass, I came on pretty late. And being an actor is great because you get a lot of downtime on set and you get to, you know, hang out while everybody else stresses out about everything. So I wanted to try producing. I co-wrote the film and starred in it as well. So as you can probably tell by the name, Body Swap, it was a take on Freaky Friday with a disability twist. So I was playing two roles in addition to producing and co-writing. So that was a lot of work, but it was really cool to try out different roles, which I think is another one of the goals of the film challenge, to try different roles in front of and behind the camera in a safe, controlled environment. And it was so much fun. I assembled a wonderful team. 40% of our cast and crew identified as disabled, which was so cool. My director was hard of hearing. Our editor or our colorist is in a wheelchair. We had so many other people who were working on the project that were awesome. I learned that my passion is always going to be first and foremost acting. I did enjoy writing. I've continued to do it a little bit because I think creating characters and creating stories go hand in hand. But um, it was important to me to learn that representation is just as important behind the camera as it is in front of the camera, because behind the camera, they're the ones telling the story too. And they often have more control over, you know, how the story is told than the actor. But Body Swap was a lot of fun. We were nominated for Best Editing. It was a early 2000s stylized film. It's also available on YouTube if you want to watch, but it was a lot of fun to kind of play with the idea of, a non-disabled friend and a disabled friend switching bodies. So the disabled friend is now able-bodied again, and there's a scene that was really funny we wrote where Francesca, my co-actor, transfers out of the bed, but the wheelchair isn't there because we've switched bodies already. So she just falls on the floor. And I think that's my favorite part because I had to teach her how to transfer out of bed. And she like videotaped me doing it and she practiced it at home, and it was just a funny like moment. And she has said to me like she learned so much about like my experience and the disability community in general. And I think it's important to bring other people into that, which is why representation again is so important. And then in the bottom right, Cece, that's my girl right there. She had a little role, but she stole the show. And she said to her mom after the shoot that she loved being on set with me, and she loved being on a set that was accessible, I think, because the sets that she normally goes on are not. So it was really special to have her be a part of it as well. So coming up, we're still forging a path. I'm doing stunt training currently to play Batgirl, Barbara Gordon, before and after her paralysis from the Joker. So if you're not familiar with like Batman and that stuff, Barbara Gordon is Batgirl, Batman's protege, and she gets shot in the back by the Joker and ends up paralyzed with a spinal cord injury. So she creates a new superhero identity, Oracle, using her computer hacking skills. And so that's kind of the storyline of this film that we're working on. But they wanted me to play her before and after. And obviously I'm going to have a stunt double to do a lot of the crazy stuff. But on the right, that was the first time they lifted me up on the wires. And I just had this huge smile on my face. And because it's something I've always wanted to do. I've always thought it was so cool. So it's really cool that this production is making efforts to use the story to raise awareness for disability representation in superhero movies and movies in general. and hiring disabled talent and disabled filmmakers. It's a really cool opportunity that I'm excited to be a part of. In the middle, that's me Eskrima stick fighting, because that's Barbara Gordon's signature style. So it's been really cool to work on this project and connect with people who want to include us and want to make, want to show the studios and the networks that, like, if we can do, literally, if we can do this on a low budget, imagine what we could do if you gave us money. So that is an exciting next step for me that hopefully I can share a little bit more about as time goes on. But where do we go from here? We've made strides for disability representation as a society, but we're still not where we need to be. I think we need to be seeing disabled people in leading roles in blockbuster films and TV. We need to be hiring people with disabilities in important roles in front of and behind the camera, like in the Film Challenge, so directing, producing, writing, and more. I think there needs to be a mandate for having disability consultants as part of the creative process anytime a disability is portrayed on screen. If the writer may be writing a character with a disability and they may not have that experience, I think there always should be a consultant as part of that process. And of course, hiring disabled actors to play the role. I think hiring accessibility consultants on set to make sure that the disabled talent and filmmakers don't have to worry about their work environment is important too. I recently I appeared in a PSA that showed during the Paralympics about, it was the Paralympic handover from Paris to LA. And I remember the accessibility coordinator came up to me and I was kind of taken aback, because she was like, let me know if you need anything. The accessible bathroom's over here. And the bathroom was huge and there was a ramp. And if you've ever been on a film set, it's a lot of trailers, and the trailers often have stairs. And, for people with other disabilities, there are other obstacles that have to be overcome. Not overcome, but there are other, obstacles that society has created for them. So having the accessibility consultant was a really cool experience, and I think that should be mandatory always. So what can non-industry people do to help? What can you guys at home do to help? I would say continuing to educate yourself and uplift disabled voices. Supporting and engaging with content that represents disability well. Shows like Sex Education and Atypical do a great job of this, along with films like Crip Camp and A Quiet Place and Rising Phoenix. And, there's so many more that represent disability accurately and authentically that, we as the community love and would love to see more of. Following creators with disabilities on social media and helping to grow their audience, because studio executives look at social media too. So, they may see somebody on social media and be like, oh, that would make a great character for in this project, or their story would be really cool in this setting. And you never know. Social media is a beast, but it's an amazing tool. I think also boycotting media that the disabled community deems harmful. The biggest example I can think of is music. The portrayal of the autistic character was just not done well, and it was not received well by the autistic community, and remembering to boycott those because the community says this is harmful. And using your own social media to call for better representation, using your voice and tagging studios and production companies. They do look at that stuff. I don't know if you know the show Manifest, but it was on NBC for 2 seasons. It was canceled, and the social media support was so overwhelming that Netflix picked it up and made a final season. And I think that's important to, remember that they look at social media and they listen to their audience, because obviously they want to make money. So But those are just some things that you guys can do if you're not in the industry to support the disability representation movement. Before I open it up for a few questions, I know there's only a few minutes left, but thank you so much for having me. It's been really cool to come back and speak to you, and just look back at, where I started and where I am now. It's very humbling, and it's really cool to get to share that. The Metro girls, you guys are so important in my therapy journey, and just know that you make a difference in your patients' lives as medical health professionals. Clearly, it's still stuck with me. 5 years. You can, if you want to stay updated on my journey, you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. It's just my name. And you can also follow the Rolettes if you're interested in seeing what we're up to, learning more about us. And show the Rolettes to your female patients and your male patients, but specifically your female patients, because we would love to have them come and just get to experience the sisterhood and community that we have here in LA. So yeah, I would love to open it up for maybe a couple questions if we have a second. I know I went over time, sorry.
So she probably can't hear us unless we're talking through the mic, but if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to pass them along. Josie, I guess I'm just curious, do you think it's better if in the media we're seeing people with disabilities just kind of blended in blindly, or that their characters, it's reflected as part of who they are?
That's a really good question. I think both. Because disability is a huge part of our identities, and it's what makes us unique. I think it's important to acknowledge that, but also it's important to not make it the whole focus of somebody's character. Like if we have like a main character on a show and they are disabled, I think it's cool to acknowledge that. Like sex education is a really good example of that, because there is a wheelchair user in I think season 2 and 3, and they don't really address his disability until like 4 or 5 episodes into his arc, but they do address it, so it makes the character much more well-rounded, and I think it's important for people to see that.
Yeah, and I know I imagine everybody else in the room can tell when it's somebody that really has a disability versus not.
Yes, it is very obvious.
Superstore example. I mean, I don't think there was any offensive exactly, but that guy didn't have a disability.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or thoughts? Yeah.
Did she ever perform at the barn that's right next to Revere High School?
Did you ever perform at the barn next to Rivera High School?
I did a camp there when I was 6, but that's the only time I've ever performed there.
It counts. All right. Well, thank you again. Oh,
Thank you so much.
Just say hello to the cat.
oh.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
All right, thanks. So thank you again for everybody for coming. Thank you for the planning committee that put together the speakers in the event, as well as the MetroHealth, some of the support from the institution for the food and the space and those kinds of things. I don't have a lot of other ending words. I know we have the raffle to pick, but there are some things that I know that we do really well at Metro. There are some things that we know we don't do well, and we either are working on them or we're trying to figure them out. But there's a lot of things we don't necessarily know that we're not doing well. And so if you have other feedback, anytime today or otherwise, we'd be happy to hear one-on-one. So anyway,
We have a couple of bags to raffle off. So I know Joci talked about building community a lot. If anybody wants to build some community, we have a United Spinal Association Northeast Ohio chapter. We have monthly meetings on the 3rd Monday of every month. And then we have in-person meetings or in-person social events throughout the year.